Welcome to this next episode of YouTube where I've entitled it Weather Whiplash, and that's essentially what we're having here. We're going from warm days to cool days to a high fire day to snow and ice. So we're going to share with you a little bit of footage that we've taken through this transition. And Bolts here is walking, obviously the pond's been drained, and so we know that's been gone. And what happens as we melt is at night it still gets cool below freezing here, and so that means things get really icy and really kind of slick, and some things come out of the snow and then they're frozen into the snow, and certainly it creates for a lot of things to investigate. Bolts has been responding a little bit to this seasonal change, and we've seen him doing a little bit of testing of Aiden, and this is kind of an approach here, and Aiden kind of faces him and then ignores him, but Bolts has been following a little bit and really paying close attention to Aiden, and so we're seeing a little bit of that late season cooler weather stimulated testing behavior coming out of Bolts now that he's a 3-year-old. The other thing that we've been seeing is certainly more wildlife within the enclosure, and one of the things that we constantly get asked is do we feed live prey here, and obviously for ethical reasons we don't, but that doesn't mean that live prey doesn't get into this enclosure. And so this next clip you'll see Bolts and Denali kind of team up against a red squirrel. And so red squirrels are the dominant squirrel here. They do chatter a lot. They're very noisy, and in combination with ravens and red squirrels there's a lot of noise going on. And this happened to be filmed from the inside of the building. Staff noticed that the wolves got kind of excited about something and were jumping on the rocks, and we're looking up, and so here's Denali with a tail wag, first identifying this red squirrel and again trying to jump and get it. Denali's 130 some pound. We haven't weighed them since last summer, but we expect that he's still at about that weight, and he doesn't get much lift off of that jump. So Bolts is going to give it a try, and Bolts again is a very alert pup. Adult. He's no longer a pup. Well, they're all pups in my mind, but Bolts, again, very alert and very keyed into actions of his fellow packmates. That's why he's so good at testing, is he can tell any weakness that occurs, and so for him, he's going to fixate a little bit on that, and that's a little bit of that predatory drive, and he's going to try to position himself into a place where he can get a better advantage. And so obviously focus is not all that strong. Again, obviously these wolves are well fed, so there's not is particularly interested in hunting, but it's interesting that Bolts is trying to get at the squirrel and trying to remove. We've got a cherry here. It's got a little bit of a cherry blight on it. That's that big black thing there. So this cherry tree that is kind of irritating to him, so he's going to chew that off and then get a little distracted by the actual fungus on that tree, and then continue. Like I said, this is not a real significant activity here. Keep in mind that it is warm. We do get temperatures in the 50s and the 60s now in the spring, and that makes it warm for wolves that have a good winter coat. So Bolts is a little bit more agile. Wolves can't climb trees like the cats can, or even foxes. Gray foxes can climb trees, but wolves can't. So they're going to watch a little bit from afar. And it's interesting, Luna and Aiden have no real interest in this. I think earlier in the day, all 4 of them were interested, but this is just more or less a stimulus between Bolts and Denali. So you can see the ravens in the background, so a lot of things coming out of the snow, a lot of food available. So we have a lot of bird activity, birds coming in from the winter migration, coming back north. Certainly our winter residents who are finding opportunities to scavenge within the enclosure are still active. And we will actually later on in Grizzer's clip hear the return of the crows. Crows don't usually winter this far north, and so when they come back as a flock, and they're pretty noisy. And it's interesting, we'll seem to get a little bit irritated at some of that frequent calling that goes on with some of the crows. So like I say, this is all just a good stimulus, and this is the part about the exhibit that is challenging for us to manage, but is equally as important, is maintaining a natural habitat type that encourages native wildlife to continue to use the enclosure. Like I said, one of the reasons why we don't put live prey in, as obviously that's not ethical to put an animal into that scenario, but we certainly can't stop the red squirrels from jumping the fence and coming in. And the wolves rarely ever actually capture a red squirrel. They may get shrews, they may get bulls, they may certainly do get migratory songbirds that might be feeding in the pen in the fall. But squirrels are pretty smart, and probably one of the other things that is stimulated to them is they do chatter quite a bit. So the other thing that's going on is Vermillion Community College's ethology class is here recording data, and again, a little bit of tension between Luna and Aiden, but it was interesting. This is a play-bow sequence here where what we call an invite chase that Luna's doing. Kind of looks like a bullfight there with them both scraping the ground, but an invite chase is go down to a play-bow and then they run and invite the other wolves to chase them. So the invite chase behavior usually results in wolves trading places about who gets chased, but what ultimately happens is Aiden will come in and kind of put an end to a little bit of Denali's rambunctious behavior. And so what's happening is I don't believe, and again this is my interpretation, but I don't believe Aiden is defending Luna. I just believe that Aiden is controlling Denali. When Denali gets excited and Denali starts dominating over Luna, certainly I think from Aiden's perspective is, that's something to stop to keep Denali under control. Obviously Denali's a big boy, and so for Aiden to control Denali as a lower ranking male, he needs to obviously be actively dominating some of that Denali excitement. And excitement is what gets them, certainly gets Aiden involved. Meaning there's a lot of dominance that goes on that doesn't involve Aiden. As soon as they get this high energy instability that seems like a lot of chaos, Aiden will usually step in. And then minutes later, it calms right down, especially you grab a bone, find a place in the bed and kind of relax. We are still using straw beds because some of these cool nights they still need it, so we're piling up the straw on top of wet straw, so it will be a mess, and there's no doubt. So like I say, when the morning things are solid ice, certainly we see the wolves interacting and scent rolling and things, as I said, a lot of things that have been here all winter that are just coming out of the ice are easy for the wolves to find now. And, maybe it feels good. Certainly the coarse ice might be a good abrasive grooming technique. And here Luna is going to roll on her back and demonstrate that and kind of do a spin. So one of the only concerns that I have about the ice is that it is slippery. I mean, there's no doubt. We are grateful to Lori Chestnut, who donated the yak tracks for the staff, but the wolves don't have yak tracks. They got toenails, but they don't have yak tracks. And so I'm only concerned really with Luna. She does so much running and chasing and jumping, and certainly don't want her to slip and fall and injure herself. But that's the life of a wolf. And they certainly are active, and Luna is one of the most active pack members that we have. So then as the day progresses and you get warmer and warmer days, the ice turns to slush and makes for a nice cool place for the wolves to lie down and cool themselves off. So they'll transition from the hay beds in the morning, the cover hay beds in the morning, and onto the ice, and then onto the slush, and then as they get wet later in the day and it starts to cool off again, they'll go back to the hay bed. So that's why I entitled it Weather Whiplash. I mean, basically you have this pattern of frozen solid ice, warming, cooling, and it means the wolves are kind of moving all over the place. Grizzly has the same problem, only like I say, Grizzly is worse because obviously it's a smaller area, so there's more compaction, there's more travel there. So in the backside of the east pen, there's a little bit more snow, whereas in the front two enclosures, it's just glare ice. And so we want to try to keep Grizzly calm and not try to do any Grizzly 500s, but that would mean that Luna needs to not create such a ruckus that Grizzer gets so intent on listening. So we've been working hard on keeping Grizzer relaxed, and when we interact, we want to try to keep the energy level calm, and obviously Grizzer likes that opportunity to be on his back to get social greetings. So one thing about Grizzer, though, was you better interact with him, because if you don't, he'll kind of jump up and make you interact. So one of the things we always tell wolf care staff is, even though he's going on 11, it does not mean that he's not a wolf and not an opportunistic predator, and he's going to take advantage of things. So we always have to make sure that when we're interacting that we kind of keep that in mind. So Grizzer getting a lot of greetings from staff, like I say, trying to make sure that he's calm and relaxed, and then during the warmest part of the day he's typically sleeping, so we don't have too many issues with it. So anyways, that's kind of it for the wolf lab. And like I said, the weather can change. We had basically 60-degree weather, extremely warm weather, and earlier the last week, and apologize I didn't get YouTube done in time. And then on the weekend, on Saturday, we had a snowstorm, or Saturday night, Sunday, we had a snowstorm, and so the wolves got covered with snow again. And then on Thursday, just yesterday, we had a high fire danger, and several wildland fires started because of power lines going down in dry weather. So like I say, you get kind of a crazy mix here. So that's it for this week's YouTube. Again, remind you, we do have a webinar on Saturday night. It is not too late to join. That's tomorrow night, a feeding webinar. So we're going to put a link in this YouTube. Our website's been down for a while, and hopefully things will get back up to soon. But if you'd like to join us, it'll be fun, and we'll talk to you next week.